news and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why, when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause. Welcome to The Probable Cause. This is a podcast covering the criminal justice system in Allen County, Indiana, northeastern Indiana, and the state of Indiana. I'm Jamie Duffy, your host and a locally based journalist. To my left is our co-host, Michael McAlexander. He is the Allen County Prosecutor. Today we have a very special guest, Katelyn, or Katie as we call her, Gustin. I am giving it the French. I'm sorry, you guys. Who's seeking to reform the state's sentencing laws for people who've committed a crime, particularly when they've committed that crime under the age of 25 and already spent years in our state's penal system. But before we get to this subject, let's get to the courts because there is a lot going on. Mike, tell us what's going on in the courts.
We have a murder case going on this week, and what did we have last week? A child molest case that there was a guilty verdict. So,
well, you also got a guilty verdict in Draylen Crutchfield.
Yes.
Which was homicide for the stabbing death of a housemate, an argument on who could stay in the house, who could sleep where. I found this scenario immensely sad. I saw an element of self-defense in the case, and so did Crutchfield's attorney, Nikos Nakos, but the jury did not. We also had the sentencing of Christopher Recht, who's 22 now. He was 19 when three others ambushed Avion Parker. It was a gang-related shooting. Parker's younger brother was also shot. Rex and Lamont Martin, who's Rex's younger brother, will be standing in trial, or he's sitting in trial in August. Rex's father, Marcus Martin, spoke at the sentencing. He said Christopher and his four younger siblings were left all alone after he was arrested and after Christopher's mother had died in 2021. She had struggled with addiction. And when the police arrested him, he told them, my kids are there. There were like 5 boys there. And they said, we'll get social services over there. And he says they didn't. So they were running the streets. He got caught up in gangs. I heard this referred to when I attended the mental health summit yesterday at the Allen County Coliseum. It was organized by Judge Andrew Williams, who is our mental health judge. I think it was one of the doctors there who was talking about what some of these kids do when they're not very well supervised, and one of them was they run the streets when they don't have any supervision. So you can see the coverage of the sentencing on our Facebook page, The Probable Cause. And I wish you would go there and like it because we've got so many podcasts on there now and so many exciting things. I could bring up the altercation or incident at Tim Hortons that happened on May 13th, but it's still in the investigatory.
The police sent the case over to us yesterday.
No kidding. This is news.
And we are going to be reviewing it. We will not do a charging decision until we get to all of the full coroner's report and autopsy.
Right. I mean, there's still some questions out there for sure.
Well, there's a lot of attention to this. Before I came in on this, People Magazine, for some reason, is made an inquiry, the New York Post.
But not the New York Times.
No.
Oh, this is a total New York Post story, folks. Totally. It's definitely a tabloid, although page 6 can be very interesting. I used to live in New York. You guys don't know what I'm talking about when I say page 6. Page 6 was where all the gossip was, so It's still there, I'm sure. Anyway, you can see all that coverage, and I do wish, you know, the Mental Health Summit was fantastic. I went to the Juveniles in Crisis, Delinquency, or Mental Illness, or maybe both. One of the doctors was saying quite often the two are right there together. The panelists were Juvenile Judge Brent Eckenbarger, Chris Rary, who is our Chief Juvenile Probation Officer, and Doctors John Neubauer and Clinton Krause. You probably know those people, Mike.
I know at least 3 out of 4.
Yeah, okay. And it really was. I did take a lot of video of that, and I'm sure it's going to come in handy later. So now on to Anthony's Law. Katie is calling this Anthony's Law because she has a very special connection to Anthony Parrish, who was convicted at age 18. Do you want to talk a little bit about how you know Anthony?
So Anthony's parents and my parents were friends. So when I was small, we used to go over to Anthony's house, and Anthony was the oldest out of all of us children. So he and my oldest brother, Lance, would take us across the street from where Anthony grew up. There's a park right there. It's near Northside. So we would always just play together while our parents did their thing on the porch across the street.
Did their thing.
Did their thing.
So
that's what we'll call it today.
I mean, Katie has some unbelievable stories. She was raised in what we call Fort Wayne's Appalachia, which you said was River Haven.
Yes.
Right. And you are a success story, in my opinion. Your father does have a record. Your mother is now dependent on you as her daughter. You've taken her in. She achieved her dream of a college degree and was the founder of Kappa, which you may recall a few years ago until she started having children and everything else.
Again.
Child abuse prevention, protection, and advocacy. And she made some waves as one of the city's original chalkers. For you that don't know, Malachi Garrett, who was only 2 years old when he was killed by his mother's boyfriend. He wasn't getting charged quickly enough, and Katie and some other people were getting agitated over it. And so they got big, you know, those great big chunks of chalk, all different colors, went down in front of the courthouse and in front of the prosecutor's office and started writing their complaints right there for everybody to see. And it did cause an uproar. And I think that's when I met Stacey Davis and you at the same time when you were chalking that night.
Stacey hadn't come in yet. She actually got a hold of me after that first chalking event to ask if she could use that same idea, but for Flip This City is what it was back then, prior to Java. And told her, I don't care, it's sidewalk chalk. You know, whatever
Have a
works.
patent on it.
Yeah, there's no patent on sidewalk chalking at the Allen County Courthouse. So, you know, do what you do.
But you all were chalking in front of the prosecutor's office too, as I recall.
Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
First Amendment.
That's what I kept telling everyone.
As I recall, though, they were taking steps to try and prevent you. They said you'd have to get permission to do this, and they were trying to do something to stop that chalking.
When we chalked outside of here, trying to get the meeting with Karen on Elias Paez's case, it was the wintertime. At one point, there was one night, Stacey Davis got a hold of us and said they put a ton of salt right outside the prosecutor's office, hoping you guys can't chalk. Elias's grandmother said, "That's fine, I'll bring my broom." So she did. By the time I got here after work, she had already swept it all off and was doing it. And at one point, they chalked "Merry Christmas" back to us. And yeah,
No kidding.
I think we were all a little petty back and forth with each other for a little bit there.
I think there was a little bit of that going on.
Yeah, just a little.
And now we just look back at it. It's sort of an interesting chapter in Fort Wayne's history, right? So Anthony's Law, tell us what it calls for here.
So Anthony's Law would call for anyone who is sentenced over 50 years but below 100 years to serve at least a minimum of 15 years with 10 years of good behavior, meaning no write-ups. If they are in a write-up, it can't be something against them per se, as if they were in someone else's write-up. I saw this.
Something like very violent.
Yeah, I saw this with Anthony. Anthony's name comes across in a write-up for someone else, where he disarmed someone.
Right.
And was actually stabbed in the process to protect, I believe it was a caseworker, social worker that they had.
Or it could have been a guard. That's in the story. I actually wrote a story about Anthony Parrish that's on the website.
Yes. So for something like that, obviously that wouldn't be marked against them because it wasn't something negative about them. And then
No, that case right there where he actually saved that staff person from getting stabbed, I would think that would shave off a few years.
Or at least show that there's something that has altered or shifted in who he is from who he was.
Right.
And then anyone over 100 years have to serve a minimum of 20 to 25 years with the same 10 years good behavior, no write-ups. One of the I wrote a few conditions, being that they need to learn a skill, trade, college degree, obviously something that they can utilize once they are released. Obviously, don't go get a nursing degree knowing that you can't get licensed with your criminal record.
Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah. For violent crime, typically the state will not give you a license to work in the medical field. They would need to show remorse for their actions and have a stable and healthy living environment to re-enter into society to. Me being someone who's advocated previously and gone through cases where my family is the victim, I've had where my family is the perpetrator, I understand both sides of losing someone you care about for a long term like that, and the feelings of this person should be put away for what they've done. So I feel like I'm a very diverse individual to have come forward with this. I also believe that this is specific. I wrote this specifically for people under the age of 25 because the prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed until we're 25.
Do you want to say what the prefrontal cortex is?
So your prefrontal cortex is in the front of your brain. It is where you make all of your decisions. It's kind of like if you have a knee-jerk reaction to something, that's the part of your brain where you'll make those decisions. And I know I've seen it brought up in court during sentencing hearings.
It was actually brought up yesterday in the panel that I covered, but I haven't produced any journalism on it yet. And one of the doctors brought it up.
Yes, the prefrontal cortex is not fully developed on a normal person until they're 25. But then if you add in neglect, and I've actually looked at multiple studies on this, like here I have a quote, neglect hinders the PFCs, which is your prefrontal cortex, ability to manage top-down regulation, causing difficulties in working memory, focus, and impulse control. And then if you bring in neglect, a lot of these, even the cases we're seeing now, what was the recent one? It was a teenage boy in the house and he shot the guy.
Essex Robinson.
Yeah, like with him.
And he was only 14, I want to say.
He's 11 years out from what science says. Prefrontal cortex is finally developed. They have that impulse control. They know better. But add in, I've heard some things about him.
Very rough life.
A very rough home life.
Right.
Add neglect, and that stunts it even further. I mean, who are we to say how someone can be? And when I say, like when I talked about how I knew Anthony, our parents were on the porch across the street, smoking weed, getting high, drinking, and I think I was 5 at the time, so Anthony was like 7 or 8, watching me, my little sister, who's 2 years younger than me, my brother, who's 1.5 years older than me, and both of his siblings. So he was 7 or 8 years old watching 5 kids while our parents are across the street doing what they do. And then his mom eventually became a crackhead. His siblings both ended up in trouble. Thankfully, they left Fort Wayne. They haven't been in trouble in California.
Nice.
They got away from some of the things that they were raised around. Anthony's father was into gangs and drugs and violence, and I've been to their grandmother's house, which is majority of their life, that's where they lived. There were bolt holes in the living room, in the walls. The house had been shot up, and I mean, it was normalized. So for me, I feel like that all of that has to be taken into account when we're talking about how long someone should get in prison to be rehabilitated, especially when they're only 18 or 19 I believe Anthony was sentenced at 19. So
I think he was 18 when, I'd have to look
I think
at
it
my
was
story
18
again.
when he was charged, 19 during sentencing. And some of the crimes he committed, I believe, he was actually underage at the time that the crime was committed. He just wasn't charged until he was an adult. And I think he would have been charged as an adult anyway. He was too close to being 18. But after being raised in that kind of environment, you're predisposed to just walking right into it. And his brothers had done the same thing. You know, his brother dated one of my best friends in high school, and he was on house arrest. We always had to go there. His youngest brother, Brandon, actually shot himself in the foot when we were in high school. I mean, I was 14 years old. Brandon, 14 years old, has now shot himself because he had access to this at home at 14. And me as a parent, I could never imagine. Like, my children have never, I don't let them do any of that. But when it's normalized in the home, at what point do we draw that line?
And at what point does the pre-sentence investigation, which is so important when it comes to sentencing, ever have the kind of details that she's just been giving us?
Well, I think we get those in a lot of sentencings.
I mean, that detailed?
I think a lot of times we get presentations, parents will testify about issues with their kids, raising them. I mean, if it's, I think you have to look at it from a relevance standpoint, and it's a balancing test between the action they did and the harm they did to what those issues with them, their development. But, you know, the courts and the prosecutors and the police have a primary duty to protect the public.
Right.
And when people commit violent acts and hurt other people,
It's the local clamor as well. That
well, it's not the local clamor. It's. I mean, I think people see that and they get upset because of if there are multiple victims type of thing. But our primary role is to protect. And once somebody goes down that road, it's hard to get them off of that. I mean, for all the reasons you said about how they're raised, what's going to change? You send them to a class?
No, and that's why I put it in here the way I did.
Yeah,
because, like Anthony, I understand prison talk. My daughter's dad has been in and out her entire life. I understand that. But when I'm seeing the action behind it as well, like as we discussed, where he had been stabbed protecting someone who works in the prison, especially with the prison that he's in and what we've seen happening, he's in Maumee Correctional.
right. And right now, that is the worst one.
And what we know as far as public record about what has been going on in Maumee Correctional, it's almost surprising to me that he would put himself in harm's way to protect someone else who's not protecting him.
Well, not only that, but he did sort of save one of the staff members. It was either a guard or, as you said, somebody from the medical staff from getting stabbed. He got stabbed himself. But how do you know there isn't going to be revenge or retribution later on?
Yeah, for him disarming this person, then
Right.
handing the weapon over, because that person is now not only in trouble for that altercation, but they've also got a weapon.
Right.
So, you know, there's going to be multiple things that happen with that individual.
And he also was, at a very young age, put into segregated, which is solitary confinement. And he spent his entire 20s up at Indiana State Prison in Seg. And that is the video that we published on the Probable Cause. And that was taken during COVID, when a National Guard member actually took pity on him and said, yes, you can use my phone and you can video and record what your cell is like. And then he gave it back to him, and then I guess he sent him the video so that we could see what was going on. So what else have you got there, Katie?
Well, I wanted to speak on it fiscally. Obviously, when, speaking of Maumee, that lawsuit was filed. Obviously, we know Anthony is part of that lawsuit. Mm-hmm. Who pays for that?
That's an ACLU, we should say.
Pays for
the 1.2 million dollars that was
Yeah,
awarded?
divided amongst,
I think there was like 17 of them.
I thought it was more than that, but it was divided amongst the inmates that were on the ACLU lawsuit. They're each getting about, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, $60,000. And so she's saying, okay, who's paying for that?
Taxpayers.
We are.
Because of the neglect in the prisons, because they can't get their act together in the Indiana Department of Correction, and I don't know why not.
Yes, and if, my thing with that is, as far as fiscally speaking, now that one has been filed, are we going to start seeing from other prisons more and more and more when we're already paying using tax dollars to house and feed? And
But there have been other lawsuits too, because there's an attorney down in Indianapolis that I've talked to. His name's Mark Nicholson. And he takes these on and he gets settlements against jails and the prison. And the ACLU told me once years ago, we can't file anything unless we're contacted by the inmate. In other words, if you're related to this inmate that's being mistreated, that doesn't count. That's what Ken Falk told me. So
that's one of the things that I was looking at as well. We're already using tax dollars to, as I said, house, feed. We got to pay staff in the prisons, et cetera, and now let's add in however many millions annually that are going to be part of these suits. Because I have a feeling now that there was so much noise made about this one in Miami. So many people heard about this one in Miami. Is that going to make it a bigger deal, and are we going to see more of them? So I bring that up here, but I also bring up that I understand not every individual that's incarcerated with long sentences is capable of being released, because as you stated,
Right.
the number one priority is protecting the community. We can't just release someone because, hey, you did 20 years, you did this, that, and the other, and now you can go.
well,
There have to be different fail-safes put into place.
Yeah, I mean, there are many issues with this. The courts have the ability, the appellate courts have appellate Rule 4B that they can adjust a sentence if they think it's too much. I haven't seen them go the other way, which would be nice once in a while.
So the prosecutor speaks.
But, I think you can raise some good issues about youth and the impulsiveness and the lack of maturity. And I think all of us know from our own personal experience, we made decisions at 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22 that we wouldn't make at 30, 31, 40, 45.
Definitely.
I just told my daughter this. She turns 18 next year, and she's like, I'm going to be grown. And I said, no. I thought the same thing. It wasn't until I was about 25 and I could actually rent a car in my own name that I was like, oh, now I'm a grown-up.
So
I just wanted to continue that we've got issues that we know about kids, and we treat under 18 differently. You can make an argument, should that be adjusted? Should that go to 19 or 20 and be better? Should it go to 25? I've heard that number frequently. And when you look at currently our sentences, when we have a lot of 18, 19, 20-year-old defendants who commit a murder, and with the gun enhancement, if they get 60 years plus another 20, 80, they have to do 3/4 of that. So that's 60 years. So at a minimum, they're going to be 80, 81, 82 in theory when they get out. Now, the Department of Corrections can knock off a certain amount of time, but it's not much when you're looking at the big sentences for educational achievement or other programs. I think we also have that issue that we're going to see, and just a little bit of history. You go back to the code reform that happened in 2013.
right.
And there was a lot of squawking from prosecutors that a lot of crimes were taken down. So a lot of things were brought down to lower level felonies. A lot of drug possession type cases were misdemeanors or low level felonies. But on violent crimes, they tended to up the ante. And the simple fact of going to, instead of doing half your time, doing 3/4 of your time, the actual minimum sentence for murder now is more than what the maximum was under the doing 50% of your time. So we're going to have a problem eventually with the people that are in DOC convicted of murder that are going to have outdates in their 60s, 70s, 80s.
It's the aging population in prisons.
And it's going to be kind of a double whammy. We ran into this a decade or more ago when we had the Kelly House and did medical, what we didn't budget for, even though these people were primarily in their 30s, 40s, 50s. They had problems, medical problems of a 60, 70, 80 kind of population. And I don't know how the treatment in being in DOC, what
Bad.
food,
Bad.
ability to exercise, take good care of yourself is probably going to be different than if you're going to the grocery and buying food for yourself.
I know there's a lot of the food is like soy based.
Right.
So, and that's not healthy for long term.
So we're going to see an aging population in DOC that hopefully won't be as dangerous as when they went in. And that's going to be something that I think probably should be studied at this point. We're over a decade in now on the new criminal code. Because under the old code, you were eligible for even a life sentence after you served 20 years. The code that was changed in 1978 had a lifetime sentence, didn't mean you got out after 20 years of actual time, but you became eligible for parole review. And depending on who you were and your remorse and
Your crime and how you've been in prison.
Some people did get out after their 20 years. Others, no, they were in for longer
the
periods.
U.S. Sentencing Project did a 6th national census of people. Indiana leads the nation in sentences of 50 years or more. Leads the nation. Almost 14% of our incarcerated population is in there for 50 years or more, which is considered a life sentence. Not life without parole or with parole or anything like that. We lead the nation in 50 years or more. And one of the reasons the U.S. Sentencing Project says this is because we tend to stack the charges and make them serve them consecutively rather than concurrently. So consecutively, we need to explain to people that don't understand that is you might get 4 sentences. You might have one for 30 years, one for 50 years, one for 20 years, and one for 10 years. So first you serve the first one, then you serve the next one. So you're virtually in there for more than 50 years.
Well, we have some rules about all of that. Several rules that are very confusing at times.
Right.
A single episode of criminal conduct usually is limited to how much you can stack them or make them consecutive. However, in a violent crime, if you have 2 victims or 3 victims or more, there's more of an attitude that each victim deserves their own sentence. Why should it be, in a sense, a freebie if you harm 2 people? So suddenly that's where you see the 100-year sentences or more. But this gets into, I think, a bigger question for us as a state. What is the right answer for bad behavior? What do we punish? What risks do we take on releasing people that have committed bad acts?
Well, the U.S. Sentencing Project says that even if you, like Katie's saying here, do 20 years, then you go into, you're still being supervised. You're just not in prison. anymore. You're getting out. And so I think we should look to other countries, because I know Pennsylvania is doing what they call the Scandinavian Project. We don't ever seem to look at that stuff. And it says here, individuals who are serving a life sentence, typically for crimes other than first-degree murder in Indiana, generally become eligible to petition for parole after serving 15 years, which you would probably know about. However, in practice, the massive accumulation of virtual sentences, stacking consecutive sentences for multiple counts, prevents many individuals from ever reaching release, resulting in what advocates call death by incarceration. And another thing that they...
But I would say again...
Other than first-degree murder.
Okay, well, I think most of the ones we're talking about are going to be murder is a big one, robbery with injury, burglary with injury, or multiple victims.
And another criticism, I'm just going to bring it up because we are talking about how we have a huge population that's gone from 24,000 to 27,000 in 2 years since 2024. We are way down in staff. We have 5,700 people working in IDOC. That includes confinement officers and medical staff and kitchen staff and people like that. They still need 1,500 more. So they're understaffed. So you can see where the violence breaks out, you know, and everything else. They're saying...
Well, I'm a little suspicious of their priorities because...
Go ahead. What are
as of yesterday, we had 95 or 99 prisoners sitting in our jail awaiting transport to the Department of Corrections. Mm-hmm. The Journal did an editorial the other day on it. The DOC said they had 900 plus, I think, people in county jails that should be in the Department of Corrections. They say I've seen different numbers for them. So a $78 a day cost for DOC to house people, then saw like a $95 one. Their contract with the feds for the immigration detainees at Miami Correctional Institute, they get paid like $291 by the feds, but the feds are a little slow on payment.
They haven't paid up.
And the state is only paying the county sheriffs $42 a day to house their people. So it's nearly twice as expensive for them to take them in. However, I'm on an email that I get notified by DOC staff about people that will be getting out and whether they're eligible for reentry court or that type of thing. And there are times when I get 15 or 20 of those a week. It's not uncommon. So they have staff to pull these reports out that are multiple pages, and then they create a progress report as well to talk about their educational achievements, whatever they are, their disciplinary record, where they've worked while they've been in prison. It seems to be pretty comprehensive. So they are keeping good records on this stuff.
I'm glad you've told me that because we're trying to get the one for Daryl Burnett.
Well, what I'm concerned about is if they're putting that much effort into people that are going to get out, maybe they should put effort into people coming in.
Well, they have, let's see, as of...
We may see more rehabilitation if they spend if there was as much time spent doing all of that for those coming in, then maybe, you know, a program like this could be.
And I think...
Because in 20 years, that guy, if treated properly, worked through whatever it is, because I think a lot of this has to do with mental. A lot of things that we see has to do with upbringing, mental, that kind of thing. Who they are in 20 years could be totally different if the time and effort is put in to actually rehabilitate.
Yeah.
Not everyone, but...
No, there's some people that are just truly dangerous, shouldn't be on the streets.
But a lot of them is, I mean, the percentage of people with mental illness in prison, too, is sky high compared to the general population. And the medical,
and that may be
you're
true,
talking about medical now. It's
but if you can't control that, or they won't control it themselves, we have no other choice but to incarcerate them.
right, because that's the only place we have a lack of state psychiatric I mean, the thing, it goes round and round. Have you ever noticed that? If we had this, then we could do that.
Because we used to be with APS, we used to regularly visit the State Developmental Center to look at conditions. We had complaints about how people were treated and abuse, and we had to check those out.
And you're talking about adult protective services.
Yes, and when they closed it, we also had issues that we had pending charges against people that were serial rapists, dangerous people that we had never fully prosecuted because of their mental health situation. But the charges were still pending, and they wanted us to dismiss all of those charges so they could put those people in waiver homes, which creates its own danger to the community.
Waiver homes?
You know, Medicaid waiver, where they would put you in a house with no more than like 3 people. Kind of
I used to work for multiple. I've worked for multiple companies where I was the aide that came in, but that creates a whole nother dilemma, because typically I was there alone.
Yeah, well,
3 individuals.
yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I've talked to people who've worked in those, and that is.
See, and we always have, sadly, we have horror stories. If you remember, the Prison Fellowship organization had an office with a single woman there, and a guy got out of prison and went over and raped her and beat her nearly to death. And that's the fear. You can go back to, they used to have a leave policy for people to get a weekend off, and they had a guy who was in Michigan City, and he got out for his weekend and promptly went back, and I think it was his wife or ex-wife, and killed her. And it's always that stuff, that the nightmare scenario for us. And
You don't know how many people went on leave and didn't do anything bad. Do we keep track of those people?
well, and that's a good point.
Thank you.
And we have that issue on reentry court. We have that issue whenever we get somebody out, especially a violent criminal. It's kind of a fingers crossed and hope for the best. And that's why we're very reluctant to do that, and prosecutors probably throughout the state would agree with me on that. But there's also some practical things that you're talking about, and we do have reentry programs, and there are probably ways to do some of that, or stair-step somebody down. We've done that with our local community corrections residential program, of take people out of prison, put them in there, put them on an anklet, monitor them, get them working, hopefully get a job. And as they do better, then you take them down and get them into housing, still on the anklet, so you can kind of
Still track
where they are and see how it goes.
And that's kind of where,
just asking it
this is a
done.
rough draft of this, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. You know,
But it really coincides with what the U.S. Sentencing Project's saying.
yeah, it's
I know.
because
I just laugh.
I don't think
These
I'm the only
people
one.
study it nonstop.
I get that, but they
And I
tend to have a
understand.
bias.
I understand wholeheartedly where you're coming from, as well as the prosecutor. As we discussed before,
Yeah.
I'm related to Sarah's aunt. He was out on an anklet, cut the anklet, ran, and now my cousin and all 3 of her children are gone.
Yeah.
So that's why I said, like, I am the poster child for the
Being on
both
both sides.
because I know what it is to be the victim's family. I know what it is to be the perpetrator's family. So I kind of know how both sides feel. And in not every scenario do I think,
They should get out.
that they should be released. And that's why this is, there's a couple stipulations I've put in, and then I would expect that, you would have some kind of stipulations too.
So like what kind of stipulations did you put in, Katie?
Well,
They
like
had
on
to
that
do
case,
minimum services or minimum sentences, and then no write-ups, and they have to learn a skill, a trade, or
That has to be available at the
has to be
prison.
available at the prisons, and something that they can do after their release with their record, because there's, again, certain licensing that they will never be able to achieve. What's the point of having the degree if you'll never be able to utilize it?
And I would kind of suggest that anyone who's found life without parole, because usually those are very serious crimes.
Yeah, very extenuating.
I mean, it takes more effort to put them in as opposed to a 50-year sentence and the 20-year enhancement kind of thing. Because we've done, in the last 10 years, I think 3 or 4 life without paroles, as opposed to 100 and God knows number of murder cases.
Well, as of today, it's been exactly 3 years since the life without parole enhancement for Cohen.
Cohen Honks Barron, yeah.
It was
And that's
3 years
been
ago
upheld?
today. It was upheld by the appellate court.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me that it was upheld.
Yeah, that's one of those cases where I feel like that's the extenuating circumstance that
Should never get out.
you should never be released.
Right. I mean, what we
too
need
much
to
of a danger
discuss
to
that a little bit since we've brought it up was that she is related to the Zent family, and Sarah Zent and her 3 children were murdered in 2021 by Cohen Honks Barron. And I know from sitting through that trial and writing it up, I think I was with Wayne at the time, that he was diagnosed at 15 with schizophrenia, with bipolar disorder. He was treated medically at that point, but then it fell off, like so many cases in this state and other states where they are not followed. And he had lost his father. His father had died when he was 10. His mother really didn't have any control over him. And unfortunately, he became one of those who was living on the streets, living here and there. And he just, people were kind to him, and what he did was inexcusable. But I mean, I personally don't believe it would have happened had he been followed correctly, and that they would still be alive. And I mean, he's going to be such an old man, and he's never going to get out, and yet the taxpayers are going to be paying for him forever. I mean, it's like, I don't know.
So you're advocating for the death penalty?
No, I can't do that.
I was going to say, do you want to hear it from a family's perspective?
Yes.
So the reason that I take my, $30-some, $40-something a day, I'll pay it every day for the rest of his life. Because how I feel is what he did to Sarah and the kids, individually going and getting each of the children. We discussed this before we started. If it had just been Sarah, I would be a little more understanding in the heat of the moment. This happened, but you individually went up and got a 2-year-old, a 3-year-old, and a 5-year-old.
Yeah.
It's not a shooting where shootings, I understand the enhancement, but it's more impulsive. It's not as personal.
Right.
If you're stabbing someone, you have to be right
there
on that person. And so with that, I will pay for him to be there every day, because what he did, I couldn't justify making him feel like he was going to sleep versus what he did.
You'd rather him
I would rather him
live with this for...
live with it, remember. Like, I feel like that is the punishment.
No,
Not even necessarily the prison itself, just the prison of his mind is where, as the victim's family, that I can say I would never want.
And this is where individual victims, these things are so unique to each person.
And why wasn't there a death penalty? Because people could have asked for that. Was it the family that said they didn't want it?
I believe it was everybody, all the families individually voted.
Right.
So her dad, her mom, the boys' dad, and Aubrey's dad all kind of took a vote, and Sarah's dad was the only one that voted yes for the death penalty. Everybody else and made him sit. Make him sit, think about it.
For the rest of his life. Yeah.
It's a tough call.
It is a very
And the
tough
other
decision.
problem with the death penalty is the heightened scrutiny that it gets from the appellate courts creates a roller coaster ride for victims' families, that they wake up every day not knowing if there's going to be some new development in the case where you get more certainty. I mean, you have the initial appeal on a lot of cases if there isn't a plea, and you frequently then get post-conviction relief filed, and then you usually have to justify that, and people with death penalty then take it in to federal habeas corpus, and the litigation goes on for 20 years.
Yeah, that's what I was getting ready to say. I mean, some of the parents may no longer be alive by the time this would even take place. I feel like it's a very large waste, personally. Like, again, I understand victims' perspective quite a bit, but I feel like death penalty, if we're going to have that conversation, is quite a bit of a waste of time, resources, effort
really here
to even attempt to
It certainly takes a lot of effort on the upfront part, and then it just goes on forever.
Yeah, then it sucks the energy out of families while they're watching it and having to.
And they have to relive every.
And then the state also.
Because our appeal, it was they went through everything, and we don't want to keep living that moment over and over again.
No, and that's one of the things that when I get requests, even for like expungements on cases where somebody's been physically assaulted, and the expungement statute in Section 5 requires the prosecutor's approval up front before a petition is even filed. And that means if there's serious bodily injury, we have to agree to it. And so often it's like, I do not want to tear the Band-Aid off of that wound or the scab for that family or that victim without an extraordinary reason to do so 15 or 20 years after the fact.
So how many, that's a good point, because we kind of veered off a little bit with that family, but since she's tied so closely to those people, and she, they were her cousins and people like that, but it's like when they come to you, what do you have to see where you will consider parole? Because you have to sign off on them. You have to sign off on clemency. You have to sign off on all those. You hold a lot of power as a prosecutor. Some of these people who have been stuck in prison forever.
Well, I look for many of the same things you're talking about. Real remorse, taking responsibility. It is so tough with it because it's so unfair to victims. And I'm not sure how we get that balance. And this goes back to my point about what do we think the appropriate amount of time is when you kill somebody? Because to the victim's family, there may be some level of sympathy for an 18-year-old who's semi-homeless and has a horrible upbringing. But if they killed your loved one or a couple of your loved ones, what's fair?
So what
What's
if they didn't kill anybody? Like Daryl Burnett did not kill anybody, and he got 80 years. Got the same sentence that his brother's killer got.
Well, it usually then depends on what he did and what his record was.
All right. Well, I won't.
Because if it's a non-homicide,
big story for Daryl.
If it's a non-homicide, and they're getting that much of a sentence, there usually is quite a history.
So, like I said, I'm working on a big story. I hope you all are waiting for it, because one of the things that they're saying here is that, and Mike can probably speak to this, prisoners across the country, and I'm sure particularly in Indiana, because we already give out more 50-year sentences than anybody else, face excruciating wait times for initial eligibility and reconsideration. The nonprofit argues that parole decisions should be divorced from politics and focused on individual development and public safety, which Katie's already talked about individual development, right? So what we're saying is, let's talk about those excruciating wait times for initial eligibility and reconsideration.
With determinate sentencing,
What's that, determinate sentencing?
well, the pre-1978 code, our sentences were a range, generally, like 1 to 10, 5 to 15. And once you hit the minimums, they had different rules about parole. People could get out. A lot of people don't like that because it's not certainty. You talked before we got started here about having a situation where did you have a set sentence or did you have a range or a cap that everybody could argue about? And that's a not uncommon plea that we do, that we may say 10 years, 10-year cap. Well, the court can give 10, it can give 9, it can give 8, give 2. And sometimes we'll put a floor in it. Minimum of 5, maximum of 10.
I think somebody told me that was done in one of the counties around here all the time.
A lot of places do that.
Right.
But determinate just means there's a set number of years that you're doing. Indiana kind of went with the ranges that we have on each level of felony, so that it's like a level 6 felony is up to 6 months to 2.5. A level 5 felony is 1 to 6. Level 3 felony is 3 to 16.
Yeah, I think it's 3 to 18.
So, but then once the judge gives a sentence, it is a set number of that.
Right.
So, and that's what we call determinate sentencing, as opposed to just sentencing them to a 1 to 10. And then the parole board decides how long they're going to spend the time. And we did have that up until 1978, I think it was.
I feel like the parole board is greatly inefficient in this state.
There's a little bit, we met with them this was probably a decade ago over some program, but I felt a little bit like, if you remember the Maytag repairman commercials, the joke was the guy sat there and didn't do anything.
Because he didn't need to do anything.
Well, because parole had become more of a less discretionary and more, it was kind of minor probation for a year after you got out of DOC. So if you got a flat 10-year executed sentence with no probation, you would then go on parole for a year after your sentence was completed.
That makes sense.
But we've done so many what we used to call split sentences with a certain amount of executed time in the Department of Corrections and then a year or two of probation afterwards. And some of that is, again, going into that stair-step mentality to not just get people out of prison with the proverbial new suit and $100
if they're lucky.
If they're lucky. So it's a way now that I think there's that sense of we're in the rehabilitation game. We're trying to do both. Hopefully they're rehabilitated and they can follow the basic rules of probation. But if they don't, we've got a hook on them that we can drag them back in.
I mean, the thing is, when you hear the stories that I hear from Miami and Westville particularly, and you hear them too, I know, Katie, that you do, it's just like, who the heck is getting rehabilitated? It's like a jungle. You know, I mean, out there, you don't know if you're going to get jumped when you're walking through general population. You don't know when a guard is going to take a dislike to you. You don't know when you're going to get extorted or they're going to try and extort your family. It just, I mean, I had somebody reach me today that she wants me to call Newcastle on her son's behalf because he's got a real medical problem and they're just not doing anything about it. So I said, yeah, I'll call Newcastle. I mean, I don't know if it's going to make them mad, you know. Oh, so a reporter on the other end here, you know, keeping track of, but it's just, I just feel like nothing is getting done properly. Let's talk about Aiden Lee, just because, I mean, I think all this has been very interesting. And sometimes I wonder, should we hold a gala for the Indiana Department of Correction? We're going to raise money for you. We're going to, like, dress up the grounds, and we're going to encourage you people to be nice to the inmates so they can rehabilitate instead of sitting there in squalor and eating soy-based crap every day. And, you know, this, I know, we're all laughing, but I mean, why not? It just, what was this county, you know, what was this country founded on? We were escaping from England and you know, some of the places that were terrible to live in, and now we come here and you know, we need psych hospitals and we need real help for these people. And it's not happening, in my opinion. But let's just talk about Aiden Lee, because one of our Supreme Court justices actually got involved. Brock and I had the fabulous encounter with him over at Cafe Forteza. There was a judicial conference going on. It was either
Last summer,
right. And I saw him sitting there, and I said, "Are you an attorney?" You know, because I can't not talk to people. And Brock's going, "Yes." And he said, "Well, I am kind of." And then it turned out he was a justice of the Supreme Court justice. First thing he brought up with me was Aiden Lee, who's a Fort Wayne boy, was 14 when he killed Mario, and the whole name here. His family called him Mookie. He was like 17. He was invited over to a home. It was in September of 2023. Did bring his dad's gun along because he felt threatened. But he also heartbreakingly took snacks for this girl. This girl invited him and Mookie, and she was going to let them fight it out, I guess. But you should have seen this guy at sentencing. He was just a little scrawny guy during the Mario D. Smith was his name, and the family was lovely. They were heartbroken. Mookie was a good guy, you know. But anyway, of course, he appealed. Like every single person who is convicted of murder appeals. No matter what their chances are, I just sit there and go, yeah, you can appeal all you want, honey. It's not going to happen. It never happens in this state. But anyway.
it happens sometimes.
It does happen sometimes. Doggone it. Dadgummit.
Yes.
I could just hear her in my mind. When pigs fly, when pigs fly.
Anyway, so he wrote, I've got it written here in the script. His name is Derek Moulter.
Have a script.
I always have a script. I mean, it's not like we go word for word, right?
The script should go, and then I'll get back on.
So he brought him up because he said when he's 14, he felt as though, yes, they should take another look, despite what the trial court, the three other justices, besides Derek Moulter and Loretta Rush, who is our Chief Justice, decided that no, the trial court stands, he's guilty, we don't need to relook that over. But what he wrote in his opinion, published order, whatever was, Appellate Rule 7B provides that the court may revise a sentence authorized by statute if, after due consideration of the trial court's decision, the court finds that the sentence is inappropriate in light of the nature of the offense and the character of the offenders. Reconsideration would allow, quote, a chance to review the matter in a climate more distant from local clamor, which to me sounds like Thomas Hardy, who was writing books in the 19th century in England. So, I love that you know they're not listening to the families. They're not the families that want blood money from all of this. And
I think it's blood money.
Well, I don't know. Yeah, that's maybe a bit dramatic. Sorry about that.
I mean, they've lost a loved one.
That's right.
And it was taken from them, and they're never going to get their kid or loved one back. And the local judge has heard the trial, has seen the witnesses, has evaluated all of that. I mean, who's in a better position? And it's looked at the defendant. I mean, some of these people come in, the written transcript doesn't always tell you what kind of attitude somebody has. And some of the defendants come in acting all tough
This kid
and
did not.
smirky. Well,
And the lead detective even said she told me she had a problem with, she felt as though there was a bit of self-defense. There was like, got cornered. And the girl that brought both of these boys together. I mean, she really,
well, if a judge is that far off base,
no, the judge was
but
not far
great
off.
deference should be given to the trial court judge.
He gave him, she or he, I don't remember what judge it was, gave Aiden Lee 55 years, which is at the bottom of the, or no, wait a minute, 45 to 65.
It's
So
the
it's right-
advisory sentence.
Right, the advisory sentence. But another thing that Derek Moulter wrote, and we just remember he is one of our Supreme Court justices. This case is especially well suited for that second task, offering an opportunity to identify guiding principles for sentencing those convicted of committing murder in their youth, which goes right back to what Katie's talking about. And didn't we talk about this, Mike, too, that you said maybe we should look at sentence modification after a certain amount of time?
Well, what I said was there's been a lot of controversy over juveniles under 18 when they commit something. I've had the pleasure, opportunity, distasteful job of what we call waiving, taking somebody from juvenile court into adult court that was very young. We had, back in 98 or so, we had a 12-year-old that had killed, a lot of people have heard of Prince Chapman, the school. Well, Prince Chapman was a man, local man in the community, great guy.
He was a great guy,
And
we've heard.
12-year-old shot him and killed him. And there was quite a controversy over waiving him into a 12-year-old into adult court. And it was, we had a 3-day hearing. This was not a rush to judgment. We had, I think you mentioned Dr. Neubauer. I think he testified, as well as other psychologists. It was quite a hearing. The Journal-Gazette's editorial editor at the time, Larry Hayes, basically sat in the courtroom, and we were in a small courtroom for all 3 days, and wrote editorials about it. He didn't think we should waive a 12-year-old.
Well, see, and that's why I can't imagine any journalist now being allowed into the juvenile court to hear that.
It's a public courtroom.
Well, you know,
But
I can always ask again, and I'm sure I'm going to
the
get through that.
question to us on waiving somebody, and this is particularly relevant when you're talking about 14, 15-year-olds. There's now a lot of our violent offenses, if you're 16 or over, are considered automatic waivers or direct files. You don't have to go through the waiver process in juvenile. So you're talking more 14, 15-year-olds, or sometimes 12. But to go in and say you're going to leave a murder case with a 12 or 13 or 14-year-old, you can only keep them incarcerated until they're 18. You have some supervisory authority over them until they're 21.
Maybe that should be changed.
But what I've kind of kicked around in my head over the years on this is, instead of, if we waive a 12-year-old and he comes out and he's convicted of murder and he gets 60-year sentence or 80-year sentence, should there be some built-in ability for him to challenge his sentence when he becomes truly an adult? And it's somewhat like yours. You pick an age, once they hit 30 or 35 or something, and
She's got science.
we've got all the brain development.
That's why as far as when we say youth and childhood, et cetera, I always go back to that 25 and younger
Yeah.
because even now, again, we talked about this before we started, I didn't really feel like I was actually an adult until I hit about 25, 26. That's when I really started to understand life more, and that impulsivity slowed drastically, which, as we know, has been proven scientifically that our impulse control is affected by that prefrontal cortex.
Well, and that's kind of the same principle behind it, that whatever the magic number is, that we get something that he's not wedded to the 80-year sentence that was given to him when he was 14.
Oh, I'm glad to
15.
hear you say that, actually.
And that we create some probably psychological evaluations and look at the prison record. How has he done? What kind of achievements has he made?
Use this time wisely.
Right. And kind of build around that psychological evaluation to have a sense of where the kid, who's now an adult, is, so that it isn't a life sentence on a 15-year-old. And at least there's options then to get out.
And I could easily get behind that, especially if there's some kind, along with that, kind of like parole, whether it be, work release or down to here's an ankle monitor.
Yes, kind of stair step the.
I agree. The stair step idea is something that I absolutely love, because we have to, even if it were something like what I'm asking for, there has to be some type of accountability.
Right.
Because the state can't, I would never expect you to sign off on someone getting out of prison after 20 years who killed someone and be like, yeah, just walk out. Good do your thing. I don't think anyone in their right mind would ever say that that was a good idea.
Right.
No, so what we really need to do is invest in the rehabilitation part of it. So let's all go over to Scandinavia and check out what they're doing.
I can agree. Are you paying for that vacation? she's taking.
Oh, if you're buying.
We'll write it off. Folks, we'll write it off. So, I mean, I think we pretty much hammered this subject, but I mean, does anybody want to add something before I go into my rant about these electric bills?
My water bill went down this month. I was super excited. It had jumped way up and then it dropped back down.
What the heck? Well, it's not going to stay there because they've already said they're going to charge more for water. Dig your own well.
I think this is a great subject. And it's something that we probably will have to deal with just on the aging out of people and the number of people we've got in there.
Absolutely.
I just don't want to see us swing too far the other way, because the victims deserve justice. And
I don't think you have to worry about Indiana swinging too much the other way.
Well, if you had told me back in 2012 that they were going to do what they did, I would have been very surprised.
Really?
Yep.
Except that they're making people serve 75% instead of 50%.
Yeah, but remember all the stuff they lowered when they did that.
Drug possession.
Well,
Which we
Which I say?
a drug epidemic going on now. I don't think it was what it is now then. Like, and in the extent of we see
well, the
fentanyl,
danger of it, the fentanyl is
the fentanyl.
different.
We're seeing a lot more meth on versus when I was, say 2013, I was 21. So obviously that's during a time frame when I would have been. I knew heroin heavily was big at that time. Obviously marijuana. I mean, I'm at a point where if the state doesn't just legalize that, it's one of those things that fiscally I like using that word. If you can't tell.
The trouble they're finding is with the higher potency, it's creating psych issues for regular users more than what the marijuana of 10 or 20 years ago was.
Well, that's why we make it legal and then make sure that in law we regulate.
I say that over and over again to Mike. Over and over again.
Kind of like fentanyl on the streets, no bueno, but at the hospital where it's regulated.
Right.
Yes.
No.
I mean, it's used for a very good alternative purpose, which is where it came from. And of course, we could always try and stop it. But to us from China.
I don't care either way. I don't use this stuff, so.
Anyway, you're right. This is what I always say too, Katie, is that, you know, the stuff, if you buy it on the street, it's been sprayed with banned pesticides, so you're taking that into your system as well. And so if you could go to a dispensary and get something that has been regulated, and hopefully, you know, you're keeping the kids away from this very potent marijuana, I think that's one thing that Governor Braun is probably doing right. I don't agree with him for, never mind. So
She's going to go way off.
If we go down that road, then we've got kids with marijuana that
we
should have.
already do. That's
I know we do.
I would say my daughter's in, you know, junior, just left her last day of junior, but she said at the school, the vapes and all of that, like, what'd she tell me? I was like, your friend and her little vapey thing, and she was like, it's a cart. They call it a cart. No, whatever.
Cartridge.
instead of a cartridge.
Yeah, it's a cart.
Oh, okay, that's the new slang.
I just learned what this meant too, so, you know.
See, Brock, what you're going to be facing, and you know,
I was already doing it.
I see adorable little 3-year-old, and now, you know.
Yeah, then they turn into OT.
I was told when I told my son, I don't
She
think
said it's like a Pez dispenser in the bathroom
Oh,
at the high school. That's why when people tell me the argument of, well, teenagers are going to have access, that ship sailed a long time ago. It's not even a phone call anymore. Like, and that's at New Haven High School.
I mean, it's in all the high schools. We don't want to condemn any one high school because we know it's at literally all of them. So,
Well, that's just the one that I know.
of course. Is that the one where you graduated too?
Nope. I am a high school dropout.
You're kidding. Well, where were you going before you dropped out?
Northside Redskins. Woo woo.
All right. Well, you've done very well then, because here you are sitting here, Missy, with a college degree, which we know Stacy Davis was your mentor. God bless my right hand. Miss her every day. And I know she was big in your life too.
Yep.
We miss her.
She was my bonus mama.
I know, she was your bonus mama.
And poor Michael, he had to deal with us in the living room while she helped me study. And when she told me, she said, you got to make sure this, that, and that are all in your paper. The rest of it, just make some stuff up. It's fluff.
She was very, very smart. I have no idea what Stacy's IQ was, but I know it was way up there. So anyway, all right, you guys, are you ready for my rant? Because I am still stuck on these electric bills. I was shocked in December and January when my bill nearly doubled. And you can bet those bills from I&M and NIPSCO are not going to go down, particularly when we have the hot and humid weather coming. And I'm sure some of you have already turned on your air. So now, I was the one who broke the data center campus story on October 9th of 2023 when I found it in Allen County planning documents. There were reassurances at a meeting a month later that I covered for Wayne TV, and I still have the video recordings on my phone, that the local utilities could handle this project, which was on 800 acres, and we didn't know it was Google. We found out much later it was Google. Of course, all the media was asking at that point. Then came the truth that the aging grid, and that means all over the U.S., needed to be improved greatly to handle the load that was required. Indiana and Michigan received approval to raise rates for an additional $62 million from the Indiana Utility Regulatory Commission to replace 2,800 poles, 240 miles of power lines, upgrade 15 substations, which I've seen crews all over the city doing, and install more self-healing grid technology. Another truth is that the grid has been needed to be updated for decades. There have been brownouts and blackouts all over the United States, fears and warnings from the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which I used to talk to them all the time, and of cyber attacks, which we are not prepared for. Our bills didn't go up because we all of a sudden started using more electricity or because of electric vehicles. I've had a hybrid or an electric vehicle since 2019, and I never saw a jump like the one I saw in December. How can we expect our poor, particularly from 46803, which is the poorest zip code in the state, to pay these utility bills when gasoline prices are skyrocketing as well as food prices? What the electric companies don't want to say out loud is that the biggest driver is the data centers. Our bills will not be reduced by levelized billing, a sleight of hand proposed by a state legislator from Noblesville. Our bills will not be reduced with smart meters. We're smart enough to know that these smart meters made our bills increase. Google and all the other tech companies who will be sucking water from our rivers and aquifers and gobbling up electrical power need to pay their billionaire share. Who thinks that will happen when the federal government is encouraging companies to build these data centers that are appearing right in the middle of farm fields all over the Midwest? But people power is very effective, and with enough protest, maybe some of that cost will be shifted to these huge tech companies. Your thoughts?
I think the more we know about this stuff, but what are we getting out of the data centers? We all rely on these for everything, and it's part of the whole network.
But I'm saying they just need to pay their billionaire share.
Well, I mean, that's why we have regulations on them and boards to look that over.
That's right. Protest and people power. Anyway, this has been The Probable Cause. We have loved it to have you here listening to us talking about sentencing and whatnot. Thank you, Katelyn Gustin, for coming on. You can watch this or listen to it on Spotify and Apple. You can watch it on www.theprobablecause.com or on our Facebook page. I've got more and more people coming over there for news. That's called The Probable Cause too. So for now, we say goodbye. This episode is filmed and edited by Frosty Pictures. The Probable Cause is produced by Maumee Media.
Worried when I crossed the Michigan line, a cop from Steuben County waiting on I-69. A headlamp went out while he pulled me over. Charged me with possession after I rolled down the window. Now that's skunk. Indians a trip when it comes to weed. It's like who doesn't smoke or use gummies? Your grandpa, your brother, your rich friend from school? Hell, throw in the whole courthouse and my attorney too. It's time those assholes change these stupid laws. It ain't worth the paper for a probable cause. Sitting on a bar stool in my usual place, this guy next to me said he was looking for some cocaine. Hell, I just sold him an 8-ball with a little piece off for me. But my buyer was a cop? Should've known he was a creep. So I'm a dealer, right? You gotta be kidding. It's a rich man's drug. I just take it because I'm injured. 8 years in Westville with a monkey on my back. There's more drugs in here than you can shake a shank at. One dirty drug test, man, this system's flawed. Undercover screwed me in my probable cause. Street crimes never did me no favors. I'm hooked on Fetty. I'm a junkie, not a felon. Told that son of a bitch on the way to lockup. I can't seem to shake it. I need help, not mocking. What do you want from someone who's been through the system? Drugs all through the house before mom and dad went to prison. Throw me in jail and give me a fine? Someday I'll be dead and away from your kind. Now I'm at the courthouse in front of a judge. Can't say my public defender cares for me much. Crimes are committed on both sides of the law. God help me now with this probable cause. C shift never gets old. Anything can happen when you're out on patrol. You think I'm just eating donuts, man? Give me a break. Nothing on this job is a piece of cake. Lights and sirens activated. This knucklehead wants to chase. Baby mama at the scene just spit in my face. Wife's worried that someday I won't be pulling up at all. You'll read about my killer in a probable cause. Man. She went through my phone and she seen my text. I told her forget it. It was just my ex. She took a swing and knocked me flat. Man, I went wild and hit her back. Judge slapped me with a no contact order. Now she's got the kids and she's staying with her mother. So she started it all and I have to take the fall. You can read my whole story in the probable when I was young. Caught a case for dealing and did my time. Yeah, I got a record, but I was doing fine. Running my own business on the southeast side. Yeah, I got a gun. I kept it on hand. Told the cop my reason, thought he'd understand. In this neighborhood, you need some protection. Attorney thought I could get just community corrections, but the judge decided to send me to prison. Can't get ahead no matter how hard I try. Read the probable cause, it'll make you cry.
Whispers and rumors that don't get reported. Stories I write that are often distorted. Got my notebook and pen, and I'm ready to listen. Tell me the truth, I'll consider your position. I've seen killers with eyes so cold and dead, and others go to prison because of what someone said, rotting away for the rest of their lives, leaving a hole here on the outside. Things are sad here on earth, and it's no wonder why. when you consider the sociopaths who remain in charge. It's me who sees the system for all its flaws, and I usually start with the probable cause. My right hand is reading the probable cause.